8:39 right now, and it is time to visit with Rekha from the Des Moines Register to find out what she has going on in her column. First of all, welcome to the program.
Thank you,
You
Lou.
saw the mass chaos here a little bit ago.
Yes, my gosh, a lot of little puppies running around.
Yeah, we had puppies from the Puppy Bowl that were here, and they were having a hard time picking out which team was going to win the game on Sunday, but I believe we have the camera affixed. We can show you which one had all of the treats eaten away from it. Look at it. Piles of treats in front of the Falcons logo and in front of the Patriots logo. Which one do you think they preferred, Rekha?
I think they preferred the Patriots.
Yeah, so that's the way. Luciana and Sweet Corn
But
went.
it could be interpreted a different way. It could be that they left all those goodies for the winning team.
Oh, left the points
right?
on the board.
Exactly,
Okay.
that they wanted to pay homage to. With,
That could be. So however you want to interpret
just never know.
You don't know. So a lot of
Puppies
things
have minds of their own.
Yes, they do. A lot of things going on here, and you have a most interesting article in the paper today.
Well, thank you. So this is kind of a personal column, actually, which I don't do that often, but I was contacted last weekend by a writer for Vanity Fair magazine.
Oh, yeah.
And also the Poynter Institute. You know, it's a journalism think tank in Florida, and they have their own, he has a blog about media. And he wanted to know how it felt to be an immigrant journalist watching these executive orders get played out in Donald Trump's America, the ones that are preventing, particularly the ones that are preventing immigrants and refugees from coming into the country if they are from particular countries.
Right.
And for a period of time, and then everyone indefinitely if they come from Muslim countries. And then even green card holders who are U.S. permanent resident immigrants who are theoretically have the right to be here for the rest of their lives. A block was put on them if they left the country and they were trying to re-enter. They were told they couldn't get back in if they happened to be from the wrong country. That has since been modified. But obviously, these are issues that affect now primarily people who don't have U.S. citizenship. I do have U.S. citizenship, but I went through a very long period when I didn't. And
because tell everybody where you were born in case they don't know your background.
I was born in India, and my parents were both employed by the United Nations, and they were professional employees. They were not representing the Indian delegations, so they were posted for most of their careers in New York at the headquarters. And it just so happened that they were doing a brief posting in India when I was born, during their tenure with the UN when I was born. So I was born an Indian citizen, but then they were living in New York when my sister was born, so she was born an American citizen.
Wow, that's unusual.
Yeah, it is, because, I mean, that's the happenstance of birth, right? And so when my parents turned 60, there's a mandatory retirement age that the United Nations had, and they had to leave the country and go back to India. And that would have applied to me as well, except that I had had my sister sponsor me for a green card because she was a U.S. citizen.
Sure.
So she had the authority to do that.
I didn't know you needed a sponsor.
So, and that's one thing that a lot of people don't know, and why I wanted to bring that up is because it's a lengthy process. You have to have a sponsor who is an immediate family member or an employer who is willing to sponsor you because nobody else in America theoretically can do the same job.
So they're going to vouch for you.
So they're going to vouch for you, and they're going to be financially responsible for you if you default on loans or whatever. They're going to make sure that you don't just jump ship and stay in America and be feeding off, you know, the nation and the taxpayers. So this is all a very lengthy process. My sister sponsored me for it. I became a green card holder, and theoretically, that allowed me to do anything in America but vote, right?
Got it.
So I happily went on as an Indian citizen and a green card holder.
And how old were you at this time?
So at that time, I was in my 20s, somewhere in my mid-20s.
All right.
Then I subsequently got married to Rob Borsellino, a U.S. citizen. We had 2 American kids. They were American, obviously, by birth because they were born here. I moved to Des Moines. I was working for the Des Moines Register as a columnist. And the thing is that I could do everything. I could say what I wanted. I had complete freedom of speech. I could criticize this government, the Indian government, any institution, any business I wanted to. And that was a delightful position to be in. So theoretically, I didn't have to get U.S. citizenship. There was no reason. I have every right to come and go. Now, since then, the rules on green cards have been modified. During the Clinton administration, it was changed so that if you had committed certain crimes, you could be deported, even if you had a permanent residence visa.
Okay.
And now Donald Trump seems to be trying to remodify it to the point where, you know, you still have to get special clearance coming back to the country if you step out.
If you leave.
If you leave, exactly. If you are of a certain religion or, you know, whatever, this is what he is what he seems to be fixing to do, although I think after he initially imposed that requirement, somebody who knows better said, no, you can't do that. These are green card holders. So then they modified it to, you know, a little extra screening, or you have to check in with the U.S. Embassy in whatever country you're visiting.
Okay.
And by the way, this is one thing I told the journalist, James Warren, who interviewed me, is that this whole thing happened last Friday, Trump's executive orders affecting people. And at that time, on Friday, coincidentally, my son and new daughter-in-law, who is an Indian citizen, had left America to go to Canada to visit her family there. And so then we were thrown into crisis about whether this would affect her. 'Cause she has a green card, right? And I mean, luckily she was able to get back in Sunday night, but we didn't know. And these are the kinds of rule changes that are really throwing families and individuals into chaos.
Do we know how many people were either stopped or detained by all these? And I heard a couple of different numbers floated around. I heard 109, then I heard over 1,000.
Yes,
Yeah.
I don't know the precise numbers, and I don't want to risk being wrong by saying, but I think that the things that I was most concerned about were, one, the sort of blanket ban on Muslims coming from particular Muslim countries. 7 countries were targeted. Anybody who was of a minority religion, the ban did not apply to. So if you're a Christian or Jewish coming from a Muslim country, you were okay. But if you're a Muslim, so that's imposing a religious test, which we have not done before, and which is frankly unconstitutional.
That's an unusual stipulation.
Exactly.
To have on this.
Exactly. And it was very carefully worded so as not to be obvious. But if you read the executive order, which I have many times, then you know that's what it says. So, sort of to bring this back to me, because in this
That's
case,
what the article's
it's about me, right?
By the way, we do have. Do you have this picture anywhere of you and Rob?
So yes, I was about to say I decided to take American citizenship in 1997. I started the process, and I was ultimately I gained it in 1999. It's a several-year process. So that's another thing people should know, that it takes several years to get your green card.
What do you have to do in that 2-year period?
Oh, I mean, you have to get all kinds of documentation. You have to take a test. You have to prepare for a test, a citizenship test. You have to.
Do you remember any of the questions that were on the test? Because I bet you I wouldn't pass.
You would pass just fine. I mean, I think that there were questions about how the government is run, like what are the branches of government and who's in charge of.
The government doesn't even know who's in charge.
Yeah, right.
How are you going to know?
Exactly. So what's the role of, you know, the head of the Senate, and if the president and the vice president
So you had to be versed on all these things.
You had to be versed on all of that. And of course you have to speak fluent English and be able to pass an English test, which was fine for me because I grew up here. But for some people who are older, you know, who come from Southeast Asia, for example, a variety of other countries, that can be a real challenge. And it takes a long time to learn a new language. So anyway, I decided to become a citizen just because I wanted to vote. I was tired of being able to tell people, you know, who I thought was the best candidate and not being able to vote myself. And I was also just very encouraged by the liberties that I was being given as a journalist, you know, and I thought the least I can do is be a U.S. citizen and say these things as an American who has an immediate personal stake in what happens, even though I already did emotionally, you know. I mean, it just became a...
But now you really have a dog in the fight.
Now I have a dog in the fight. So back to that picture. So on the day of my swearing in, which was February 19th, 1999, we invited, Rob and I had a party that night, and we invited people to come over and depict through some kind of representation, either in dress or in a presentation they would make, what being American meant to them.
That's Borsellino.
This was the invitation that we sent out. Our friend Mary Kelly, who was a graphic artist for the newspaper, photoshopped a picture of our faces on Sid Vicious and Nancy Spungen.
That is funny.
To show what being American meant to her, evidently. And then we invited people to come over and talk about you know, the rights and responsibilities of American citizenship. And it was great fun. And there was a lot of input about what it means and, you know, what's good and what's bad and what's missing, what you have to give up when you relinquish citizenship from another country and all of that. But, you know, what I guess I bring this all up by way of saying, I very consciously and intentionally became a U.S. citizen. I was not born into it like you and most Americans were. So it's something that I had to give a good deal of thought to. And now, you know, I'm feeling so disturbed that those very values that I wanted to be an American for are under attack. freedom of speech. I mean, this war with the media that's going on from the Trump administration is horrifying to me. The fact that we can exclude people based on a religious litmus test from this country is horrifying to me. The way that certain rules are being rewritten, and quite frankly, this whole ban on entry by immigrants, when there is no intelligence warning about these particular countries, nobody's saying that they're a threat, that letting them in is a threat. They've already, some of these refugees who were turned away had spent 2 years being vetted. They've all been vetted, and they're all deemed safe. So I decided, to tell the world in my column today that yes, being an American has rights and responsibilities. I know that very well. I took the test, I became an American intentionally, and now I feel like my responsibility is to call attention to what's going on here and the attacks on core American values that are taking place.
Now the question is, if you were not an American citizen right now and you saw all this going on, would you still?
Would I stay here?
Would you still?
Would I still become a citizen?
Become an American citizen.
Really interesting question. Really interesting question. And I guess I would do wherever I thought I could be most effective in trying to change the dialogue here around what it means to be a foreigner and an immigrant. I would do that. But I think I would, because that would give me a little bit more what is the word? Authenticity in the eyes of most people, most Americans, to be able to criticize.
To say, hey, I'm an American citizen.
I'm an American and I've invested, all of this. And by the way, I got all of my journalism training in American institutions. I went to Columbia University Journalism School. I've, worked for American newspapers my entire career, which has been like 35 years.
Wow.
And so, I think I have the right to speak on behalf of a certain subset of Americans and to tell the story of Americans and others who are not being treated fairly.
Okay, so all this is in today's Des Moines Register?
All in today's Register.
So pick it up. What page of the hymnal?
Oh my goodness,
that'd be
knew you'd
15A.
ask.
15A of
there
today's,
you go.
That's in the hymnal today. Thank you very much, Rekha.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you. See you next week.
Good to see you too.
It is 8:51 right now, and we will be right back. Look at that. That's Principal Park right now. They are getting ready to show off the World Series trophy. Jackie is down there. We'll check in with her in just a couple of minutes. We'll be right back. This is CW Iowa Live.